Hey there, welcome back. It's me again. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to overcome the reptilian mind control matrix. And what we're going to focus on is not only what that is, what it means, but what the one thing is that you can do to achieve complete and total victory over that mindset. The reptilian mind control matrix. So we're going to get into that, and it's important that people have information on what to do. It's not enough to have intellectual information about what something is, right? I mean, there's plenty of videos on YouTube and all over the place that are going to tell you about, what the reptilian matrix is, how reptilians are controlling your mind. There's plenty of information out there about that. And then people get really into, who the reptilians are and all that kind of stuff. And we can just get really, really involved in all of the conspiracies that are out there to trap you and control you. But that information means nothing if you don't have the power to actually overcome it. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, and that's part of my job. My job is to help give you power over these things. So so we're going to talk about that. I'm distracted because I just saw on one of my things here on my ad there for the light body, I forgot to put a dot in there. So it's qigong.thunderwizard.com, just in case. So whenever you see that qigong.thunderwizard.com, make sure you put a dot after Qigong. I'm frustrated. I could have fixed that in 5 minutes. But anyway, so I'm not going to let my reptilian brain trap me in the regret of that tiny little detail. So we went through a huge transformation here with this eclipse. And as I've said before, eclipses are going to have different effects on different people. And I went into a lot of discussion about what we could expect with this eclipse. I talked to you about because of, astrologically speaking, what this eclipse was doing, that I gave my prediction that Donald Trump's presidency was going to be very short-lived as a result of that. I won't get into that now, but you can go and watch that on the channel there where I talk about Trump and the eclipse. But what is most important to me now is to give information to you to empower you and to free you. So today we're going to be talking a lot about energy, and we're going to be talking about energy work. I teach a lot of energy work, but I don't talk a lot about it, and I don't talk a lot about what it does to you and why it is so important to be able to actually achieve liberation, to achieve freedom. Because without this power, you are virtually doomed to live in this reptilian mind matrix. And it's because we are wired that way. And I'm going to talk to you about that, about how human beings, even though we have this capacity, see, we live in this really amazing dualistic opportunity in our universe where we can achieve states of being that are beyond scientific comprehension. We can achieve power and freedom, not to mention happiness, all of that stuff, beyond what science can understand. And, science has this thing about the brain. It wants to figure the brain out. And there's a phrase I'm sure you've heard a lot, which actually is not true, but there is at least some truth to it, which says that the average human only uses 10% of their brain. And if we could open up the other 90%, then we could achieve all kinds of things. Well, that's true. The brain is designed to be used for more than just figuring out where your next meal is going to come from, or where your your next paycheck is going to come from. And that's what most of us are doing. Most of us are just running around trying to figure out, just like our reptilian ancestors, we're still running around trying to figure out how to survive. And we're using this big thing on top of our shoulders for doing these really mundane things. And so instead of, the idea is that once you achieve the ability to take care of your physical needs, then you go beyond that. But we haven't done that. We use this brain to do all kinds of things like, create cars and trains and planes. It's still basic survival stuff, how to get from one place to the next, how to get your, we get all these, farms together, and then we get these giant supermarkets, and we have these factories. And so, but in terms of achieving our survival, we achieved that a long time ago. And it's just overkill now. And all of the time that is spent, using this huge computer on top of our head to just simply get more and more and more of these survival items that we really don't need. It's just a huge waste of time and effort. So it's, it's, anyway, I'm trying to think of a cute analogy, and I'm not coming up with one. So we're going to be talking about, how to achieve the light body. You've probably heard that a lot. And see, I downplay a lot of what I teach. I teach a lot of Qigong, and I have my first compilation of Qigong that I created and syncretized with other things. I've been teaching this whole time, and I have been underplaying it. And I'm realizing that, all of this talk about everything that we talk about, without having the ability to use the energy to actually achieve those states, it's kind of a waste of time. So we're going to be talking a lot about that, and I'm going to be talking about this practice, which I call Celestial Qigong, how it can actually give you the ability to achieve what is known as the light body. I'm going to be talking about what that is. I'm going to be talking about what the brain does, and the glands in the brain, DMT. I'm going to be talking about what all this stuff is. I know you've heard about it, and I know that people really like to talk about. Anyway, I'm going to cut through all the talk, and I'm going to show you what to do. But here is the DVD. I recommend that you go get it. You can go to Qigong, which is QIGONG.thunderwizard.com to get this. Okay, so as always, I'm going to check to see if we have any people on board. I never know when, how many people are going to show up, because I don't tell people that I'm going to be on here. We've got 8 people on here so far, so we'll see. It might not be the right time to get a bunch of people, but we're going to get to a lot of good information here. So I really want to give some really specific information on not only what fear is, because it really dawned on me where it all comes from, and it dawned on me what the very simple solution is, and the actions that we can take to overcome that. So as always, I do take questions, so let me see if there are any questions here. Okay, so again, best way to interact with me is to leave me a question. Okay, looking for the questions. That's okay. So you can ask me questions about anything. How long to practice level 1 before moving on to level 2? She's talking about Celestial Qigong. This is Emerson's Coffee, Bike, and Rum Shop. There is no set time limit. If you want to move on to level 2, then, I guess I want to say 6 months of like daily practice. and then move on to level 2. You know, I suppose one of these days I'm going to have to make a level 3, but anyway, we'll talk about that. But the short answer to your question, I would minimum 6 months and then move on to level 2. You'll find that the bulk of it is in level 1. That's where the bulk of the practice is, in level 1. There is a third level, but yeah, I'm kind of on the fence about teaching that on video, because if you don't do it right, you can actually fry some circuits. So anyway, all right, so I'm going to get on with the teaching here. And you know, Thunar wants to make an appearance here, so let's talk about Thunar. So let's talk a little bit about some mythology here. You know, again, even though I come out against other teachers that I think have incomplete information or are mistaken, don't be fooled that I don't think that they're not tapping into something real, that they are. You know, David Icke and others. There is truth to what they say when they talk about that our main issue is to overcome this reptilian mind control influence. And I've talked to you about what the reptilian moon matrix really is, the Saturn moon matrix. I've explained to you exactly what that is, because here's the thing about the reptilian brain. When you've got this human being scenario where we have this ability, we have this destiny, if you will, to achieve this magical state of being, this state of godhood. We have all of the components. If you're a human being, you have within you all of the components to achieve this state of godhood, where you can, you know, travel to multiple dimensions, where you have the power to intend your life, to create and intend your life, the power to understand what is important and what's not, you know, and more importantly, the power to be fulfilled and happy. You are destined for this, but the question is whether or not you're going to open it, whether you're going to stimulate that, where you're going to unlock those capacities within your cells. The question is whether you're going to be able to do that. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, it's sort of like, you know, again, it's, if you want to take the video game analogy, video games are a lot of work and they're a lot of fun, and the whole point of it is, you know, the most fun ones are the ones that have these special keys in it, where you get to these certain levels, and you know, and there are some like hackers out there. If you can find a certain key or a certain special whatever, you know, you can actually find hidden within the video game these special things that give you unlimited lives and that sort of thing. And so we've set up this human existence to be like that. And for those that are able to get past the illusion of being limited, the illusion of being trapped, for those people who can make their way out of the reptilian brainstem, then there are these special keys which we have up in the brain called the pineal and the pituitary. Now we've got a lot of people who are getting really into DMT, and they talk about that. But what they don't understand about that is that you can't just simply take DMT and achieve this. The only thing that's going to happen when you do that is that you might have, you know, a trip or a heavy experience, but what's going to happen is you're going to overload the glands of the brain and actually get them to shut down. Because the glands of the brain are designed to release these chemicals into your body so that you can achieve this. Now, you can't do it with just DMT. This is another thing. You know, if you just take DMT, or if you just take ayahuasca, or if you just do whatever, then you'll achieve it. That's not accurate. That's not complete. Because you also need energy. You need the combination of these chemicals in the brain combined with life force energy, and be able to use the mind, not the brain or the intellect, but to use the mind in order to direct these things and to use them synergistically. The way that you want DMT to be released in the body is naturally without any external influence, meaning chemicals. Because what happens when you take chemicals, whether it's power plants or can you get DMT? I think somebody said you can get DMT. In fact, I knew a crazy guy, a crazy Qigong guy, who was really high-level Qigong, and then he would take other stuff and he would meditate, and he blew his circuits out. He was a total nutcase. Total nutcase. And he did a lot of damage to his body. But you want the glands to, like muscle, you want to train the glands of the brain to release these chemicals naturally into your bloodstream. Because when that happens, then you get the benefits. Then the keys come together, and then you achieve this state called the light body. But when you try and do these, these cheats, then you don't achieve it. And we could talk all day about all of the things about enlightenment and all of the things, we could talk about this stuff forever and ever and ever. But without the power to achieve it, and without the ability to unlock what's already within your DNA, within your human cells and your brain, it's kind of a waste of time. So anyway, we're going to get into all of that, and I'm actually, even though it sounds very complicated, I'm going to give you a very easy path to achieve this. So let us talk about, first we need to identify what the reptilian brain is, what the reptilian influence is on us, what the reptilian mind control matrix really is. So let me see if I've got it here. I think I got a list here of these sort of things, so let me see if I can find it. Here they are. Okay, so when you are born as an infant, the part of the brain that you have the most connection to is called the reptilian brainstem. We actually have it in the body. It is not just an idea here. There actually is a reptilian brain. It's the base of the brain, and it is it comes from the first animals that evolved. They evolved with this reptilian brain, and so this is the base of everything. This gives us physical survival. So when you're born as an infant, that's what an infant taps into. An infant is operating from the reptilian brainstem. And so it's interesting when we talk about this and we talk about adults who are walking around who many of them are still operating on that level. In terms of what they can achieve as a human being, they're still at the infant stage. So here's a little map of the reptilian brain in the body. And so we've got two other levels of the brain. We've got the midbrain, which is emotions, and that is a mammalian development. So mammals have this. When animals evolved beyond reptilians and became mammals, then they had this ability to tap into emotions, and emotions were used as a bonding tool to create communities. So we see a completely different, or maybe an addition to the survival mechanism that the reptilians use, because the reptilians are all about isolation and survival in isolation. When a reptile is born, a snake is born or a lizard is born, the snakes lay the eggs and then slither away, and then they have to, the little eggs, the little whatever, crocodiles or lizards or whatever it is, they have to fight their way out of the egg, and then they're on their own. So they're not raised. From the moment that they are born, they are in isolation, and they are in competition with each other. The moment that they come out of their shell, they are on the defense, waiting to defend themselves from enemies. So their entire life is about taking care of themselves. The only time that they might connect with others is when they're reproducing, or when they're fighting for territory or eating them. That's their only interaction with other people, is through violence or through feeding or through reproduction. So I'm going through all this not because I'm a scientist and want to give a scientific lecture here, but because now apply it to yourself and apply it to people that you know. And how many people do you know? How many people have you experienced that that's how they live? Just because they speak, just because they drive cars, just because they can do complex tasks with their hands and their body, they are still operating primarily from that one aspect of the reptilian brain, which is to defend itself from attack, to eat, to procreate, and to feed. And that's it. And so fear, when you live like that, fear is the most valuable tool that you have. And so this is the default. When we're born, our default is to go into fear. Now, I'm just remembering something. Let me see if I can remember it correctly. Yeah, I'll have to get back on that anyway. I've got too many things flying through my head. So moving past that, we get to the mammalian stage, where mammals then create this new mechanism and strategy for survival, which is they're going to bond in a group. And so now you have animals rearing their young. Now you have animals creating family units and creating herds and, you know, all this kind of stuff, because now it's the group that takes care of each other. And in order for the group to stay cohesive, you have to have some form of bonding, which we experience as emotions. So, and as you know, if you've had a pet, especially even cats, people think cats are these, these aloof beings that don't care about people. Cats are very bonded, to their owners. If you leave a cat alone in the house, the cat usually will walk around and, you don't know this because you're gone, but the cat will walk around and look for you. The cat makes noise. The cat misses you. Cats have strong emotions. Dogs have strong emotions. And pretty much any mammal, if you take it as a pet, it will have an emotional bond to you, especially if you raise it. So that's where animals are. So what is it about humans? Well, we've got this other complex, huge brain tissue on top of that. What is that for? It's not for just figuring out how to make a car or an airplane, because what's the point of that? You use that just to create all this technology to do what? To still live out that reptilian fight or flight mindset. There's something else to it. And I think this is something that we've missed, which is once you've achieved, your ability to take care of yourself, once you've achieved the ability to bond, then this other part of your brain is meant to connect you to a completely other state of being. It's meant to connect you to other realms, to other other states of being. So we've got these glands in our brain, the pineal and the pituitary, which a doctor can tell you that it regulates hormones and all the rest of the other stuff it does. But this has been the focus of meditators and energy workers for thousands of years. They've known that when you can unlock what's hidden in that then you unlock potential within you that is untapped. And so this is why there are all of these rules to meditation, like avoiding states of anger, avoiding states of fear, avoiding states of codependence, we would call it now, where you're not dependent upon other people. So we go beyond that state of bonding. You know, there's bonding for the sake of bonding, and then there's being addicted to it. And so these are people who've gone out into the woods, or they go onto the mountaintops, or they go into ashrams or whatever, and they use discipline along with meditative techniques in order to unlock this, so that they can live in that other part of their brain, the higher aspect of the brain. So now I want to bring in Thunar into this, which is the god of thunder and lightning. You know him as Thor. He has a direct connection to the East Indian god Indra. You've probably heard of him, but in order to understand their function, we have to look at their name. So let's take a look at that. So we talk about these beings as beings the gods of thunder and lightning, but they're far more than that. Those are just the symbols that we use to attach to them. What is their function? The function of the thunder gods are to be protectors of the human race. And so, well, what are some other things? That's the function of the thunder gods. What are some characteristics of the thunder gods? Well, they master this thing called life force energy. They master this thing called the electromagnetic field. And I've talked a lot about the electromagnetic field, and I won't go deep into it, but the electromagnetic field is absolutely necessary for life to exist, because if it wasn't for the electromagnetic field, then there wouldn't be any separation. It is a power that, especially as you go smaller and smaller, it becomes, I think, 10 to the 36th power times greater than gravity. It's an incredibly powerful force. So I've talked a lot about that, because in order to be able to be successful in life, in order to be free from fear, to not operate from fear, we have to have this ability to create healthy boundaries on all levels. And that, you know, I've said this is one of the main issues. I mean, if you can fix the boundary issues, you can fix personal problems, you can fix emotional and mental problems, insanity, you can fix health issues, all that kind of stuff, if you get proper boundaries, which is what, you know, the electromagnetic field does and what life force energy does. But then we have this other aspect to the thunder gods, which is life force energy. So that's what lightning represents to them. It's symbolic of them having the power over life force energy. And without this spark of life force energy, we won't survive. But there's also the thunder gods, Indra and Thunar specifically. Each of them has their own like superpower drink. You know, like Popeye has spinach, right? He'll pop open a can of spinach and boom, he'll get super strong. Well, Indra has Soma, which is the thing that he drinks. It's a drink that gives him the power over life force energy. And Soma is connected to the moon. It's one of the names for the moon. The moon is representative of this nourishing life force energy. So again, if you worship the moon, you're going to get this kind of life force energy, this power, this magnetic force of life force energy. And Thunar has mead. He drinks copious amounts of mead. Odin drinks wine. Totally different. Odin only, in fact, Odin doesn't eat any food. The only thing he does is drinks wine, because he's about wisdom. That's a whole other topic. We can talk about Odin another time. Today we're talking about the thunder gods. So in order to achieve this, because again, Thunar and Indra are deities of the mind, meaning the brain. To unlock the powers of the brain, we need copious amounts of life force energy. And this is what energy work is. This is what Qi Gong is. So the word Qi Gong, spelled QI lots of times. Excuse me. Qi Gong is life force energy work, breath work. Breath is the easiest way to do Qigong is just to breathe deeply. You know, that's why just closing your eyes and breathing from the navel, that's, you know, that's something that every practice does. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're an actor, an orator, a martial artist, a meditator, if you have a teacher and any, you know, musician, whatever, even, you know, I don't know, all kinds of physical sports, they're going to tell you to operate from the navel center. You know, where's your center of gravity? Where's your center? It's because our navel center is where life force energy is assimilated. It's where it's stored, and then we can process it. So that's just for the average person walking around breathing, whether they realize it or not. They're pulling life force energy through their breath into their navel, and you know, especially like you see people when they sleep at night. When they're asleep, they breathe from the navel. Their stomach goes up and down. During the day, lots of people breathe from their chests, you know, because they're whatever. So anyway, I'm kind of going off the topic here. But the point is this: in order to access this upper part of the brain, in order to access these glands, the pineal and the pituitary, and to get them to unlock the potential within you to achieve the state of the light body, you cannot do that without life force energy. And so this practice of Qigong is one of the ways. And I'm going to go into some of the things that I've learned, some of the things I've experienced, and some of the, you know, stories that I've heard about this science of life force energy, which we call Qigong. Okay, so I'm going to take a look and see if there are any more people that have showed up, if there are any questions. We're up to 19 now. So again, the best way to communicate with me is through a question, because I won't pay attention because there's a lot of people on here. So to best make use of your time, let's look for the question. All right. So I see somebody here is talking about Reiki. So let me talk to you about. There's a difference, and I've run into this before where when I talk about energy work and people will say they do Reiki, but there's a difference, but I'm not denigrating. One isn't worse than the other, one isn't better than the other. They're different. Reiki, as opposed to Qigong, they do different things. Reiki does use life force energy, but Reiki is about channeling the energy from the masters. So like if you, let's say you're going to do on two extremes, you're going to do Reiki healing. So Reiki healing is, as I understand it, you're channeling energy from the celestial masters, and you are simply the conduit. So it's very passive in that regard. You're simply allowing it to be flowed through you to the patient. Qigong healing, very different. Qigong healing is very proactive. Qigong healing is you yourself are building up a reservoir of energy which you can feel. Like you begin to feel this power start to fill up inside of you. And then you take that reservoir and you transmit it. So this is the same thing when you see, you know, in the movies, like the kung fu movies. What was some of the most recent one? Something tiger, hidden dragon, whatever. Crouching tiger, hidden dragon. All that stuff you see in those movies, it looks really cool. The reason why you see that in those movies is because some of those things are actually achievable if you have enough life force energy and if you know how to use them. If your meridians have been opened and all that kind of stuff, you can actually achieve some of those things. And that stuff you can feel. You know, there was a point in time, I haven't done this in years, so I don't know. I'm sure if I practiced it, I could do it again. But there was a point in time when I was practicing this stuff, I could barely touch somebody, and they would feel just like somebody hit them with a ton of bricks. There were times you don't even have to touch people. and it's like they get hit with something. This force that can come out of your body in all kinds of ways. It's a real force. It's not just something that you think about. So I want to make that differentiation, not because I said one is better than the other. In fact, if I were to heal somebody, I would use Reiki. I wouldn't use the Qigong method. So I think Reiki is, I can't say superior because there are some really great Qigong healers out there, but Reiki healing, if in doubt, that's the way to go if you want to heal people, because you're being a conduit of very high vibrational energy. And you don't have to really have, anyway, I won't get into that. Qigong, on the other hand, has a lot more similarity to actual physical exercise. You've got to strengthen yourself, you got to discipline yourself, and you open up the meridians, like if you want to get strong, you got to build up muscle, you got to open up the meridians in the body to be able to handle the amount of energy that's going to come through. So the benefit of this is that it has tremendous healing powers on the body. Tremendous. And there are whole disciplines of healing that are nothing but Qigong. In fact, the master of the Taoist sect that I was part of, the whole way that he got into what he did and to be able to master energy to the point that he did was that he was a sickly child. And this is something that happens a lot in Chinese culture, at least, especially in times past, is that if a child is born sickly, they take him to the local Kung Fu master, because the Kung Fu master will be ideally a master of Qigong as well. And so they start to teach the child Qigong so that they can heal themselves of whatever their illness is. And the guy who was the master of our sect, who is unrivaled, as far as I know, I could tell stories, unrivaled in his energy prowess. He actually had like a curved spine and all kinds of stuff like that. But, anybody who knew him, and even to this day, he still goes around teaching Tai Chi, and he's untouchable. Nobody can touch him. He's an old man. This is the power of Qigong. So I want to make that differentiation and give you a larger toolkit to work from. That you can use things like Reiki, and then you can also use these other aspects of Qigong. So I am more and more slowly coming to the conclusion that the Qigong that I've been teaching is not just something that is interesting that I came up with. That my thought process at the time was that I was going to take some of the more advanced practices that I was learning and put it into a more user-friendly format, so that it would be easier for people to learn. Because I'm about that. I always want to get to the, let's get to the, let's cut to the chase. And so I try to make things easier. So I wanted to make something that I could teach on video, because normally when you're doing, postures and things like that, you can't do it without having a teacher there, because the teacher will just slightly shift your posture, just a tiny bit. There's also a transference that happens with a teacher. The teacher will transfer energy to you, not by doing anything, just by being in their presence. And I had this experience, my students have had this experience where when we're working on it, the student kind of can't hold on to things because there's so much energy coming through. I wanted to bypass that and put it into a form that the average person could just plop into their DVD player, pull up on their computer, and be able to get the benefits of this very high level energy. And what ended up happening is that people were contacting me, and I had people were contacting me who were already masters of Qigong, masters of Tai Chi, all these kinds of things. And after going through the Celestial Qigong, they were telling me that they had never experienced anything of this magnitude before, and that some of them were reporting that they were having experiences with beings of other dimensions and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that wasn't what I was trying to do. And so I've come to the conclusion that, like many people, I was just simply a conduit through which the Celestial Masters decided we've got something we want to give to people, and we're going to do it through you. And so I just sort of showed up and kind of, okay, and thought I was putting this thing together. When in reality, what they were doing is they were taking these high-level practices and they were streamlining them for the masses. This is where we are now. This is what the Aquarian Age is. If you want to know what the Aquarian Age is about, it's about human beings becoming completely self-sufficient within themselves while at the same time being part of a community. So there's the difference between, you know, when you go to a cult, people are dependent upon the community for their identity. And then you have the other scenario where you have people who want to dominate and control. People who want to be kings and, you know, have people as slaves underneath them. And then we have the Aquarian Age, which says we're going to do away with both of those extremes, where each person is going to be their own teacher, is going to be their own master, and is going to be completely self-sufficient on all levels, and at the same time be a cooperative member of a group, meaning the human race. And so we're going to see a lot of barriers between people, between cultures, between religions, between races, between the sexes. We're going to see all these barriers come crashing down. And that's why you're seeing so much resistance to that. That's why there's these whole movements of people who go on and on about, you know, anyway, I could get into all the political nonsense people get into. I don't want to do that right now, but this is where we're headed. We're headed into the Aquarian Age for that. So before we get into deeper subjects about that, I will take a look at some questions. I'm going to backtrack. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what it is that creates and keeps us trapped in the limitations of the reptilian mind control matrix. And we're going to take a look at what it takes for us to be freed from that. And then I'm going to talk more specifically about how energy work accomplishes this. So let's see, first off, is there any questions here? All right. Dive into Spirit 33 says, I have a question. I used to teach yoga for many years, and I took 2 years off to focus more on breath, rebirthing, and Reiki practitioner stuff. My body has tightened up. Does this affect the energy? Well, I think the tightening of your body, like you said, you've taken time off of teaching yoga. You know, I used to teach yoga too. I used to teach Kundalini yoga, and I was quite, you know, I've never actually been all that super, you know, flexible just because of my body type. I'm just not that way. But yeah, I tightened up a lot after not doing all those stretches. But you don't need to be super flexible to do energy work. A lot of times the tightness in the body is a result of emotional states of being. You know, our body tightens up when it's under stress, or, you know, when it's in fight or flight. And most of us are living like that, you know, if we've got to work a job and drive cars on freeways and that kind of thing. So can you still do energy work? Yeah. See, here's the difference. See, you're bringing up a good topic here. I've done both. I've done yoga, a lot of yoga, and I've done yogic meditation, and I've done Qi Gong, the Chinese version. Chinese have their own version of yoga, which they call Tao Yin, I think. They're different vibrational energies. They're not the same. They're related, but they do different things. And so instead of, you know, getting into a, like, say in yoga, you might get into a posture with some stretching, which is going to do a lot of same things. It's going to open up the meridians. It's going to release a lot of hormones. It's going to, you know, do all kinds of wonderful things with the nervous system, all that kind of stuff. But Qigong, you know, some of the really advanced ones will just be a static posture that doesn't take any special flexibility. You know, I teach this in multiple places, but, you know, some of these postures, like the masters, the Chinese masters, when they get really old, you'll see them stop doing moving exercises, and some of them will just adopt these postures, these stances, and stay in them all night. And the amount of energy that they have is amazing. In fact, one of the things that when you want to learn high-level internal martial arts and Qigong, is that a teacher will put you into a posture that seems relatively easy to do. You slightly bend your knees, you might have your arms out a little bit. It seems really easy to do, and then they'll leave and they'll say, stay in this posture until I come back. And they might leave for 4 hours. And you're required to stay, and if you get out of the posture, they'll know. So you can't cheat. And what ends up happening is that after, a few minutes, your body starts to shake, and then you start to sweat, and then all kinds of things start to happen. And it can be really challenging. And the reason why it's so challenging and difficult isn't because of the amount of stretching or the muscles that are involved. That has nothing to do with it. It's that the nervous system and the meridians are aligning themselves and beginning to open. And just the life force energy connection between the heavens and the earth especially start to fill in those places, and the body starts to then have a crisis because it can't handle all that. Also, the mind can't handle it either. And so when the mind starts to worry and get upset, then the body starts to shake. So these are guys that when they do this, they get benefits of it that are even better than sleeping. They might sleep 1 or 2 hours a night, but they'll be in their static posture for 4 hours or 6 hours. And the amount of power that comes out of them is unbelievable. So again, I want to just, I haven't talked in depth about this for a while, and I kind of want to really open this up. Okay, Tom Talmadge is asking me about some entity named Yaldabaoth. I know nothing about that. I'm not a Western magician, so I don't know who that is, and I couldn't even come close to answering that question. But thank you for asking anyway. All right. Emerson's Coffee, Bike, and Rum Shop says, what happens to the gods when a person switches paths? For instance, if someone goes back to Christianity from heathenism or New Age. I guess you kind of have to talk to those gods themselves. Odin has made it pretty clear that he does not like Christianity. The only reason I say that is because I experienced that in multiple people who work with Odin. He makes it very clear he does not like Christianity, and I know exactly why. I talk about that in the book. Where is that book? Specifically, if you want to learn why, by the way, if you want to learn why, one of the reasons why we are trapped in this this reptilian mind matrix is because of what was happening with empires and religion and economy but specifically our thought process about our connection to the universe. And Christianity had a huge hand in that, and I talk about that in this book here. And I highly recommend it to anybody who's having doubts about what religion is. If you feel like you're kind of straddling two worlds and you have a hard time letting go of maybe a bunch of religious guilt or fear that like for instance, that there's no such places as an eternal punishment, hell. You know that God doesn't throw people in hell for being mistaken, but at the same time you don't feel comfortable walking away from Jehovah or Jesus, and so you're in this place where it's confusing and you're trying to make up your own religion to make it work. I highly recommend that book. It's going to be challenging. It's going to challenge a lot of the ways that you see things, but I'm all about liberating people's minds, because religion is one of the ways that society, the elites, government, all of that stuff keeps us trapped not only in our tiny little lives, but keeps us addicted to things like oil and, you can name it. But instead of going into all that conspiracy stuff, all you really need to do is change your understanding of your connection to the universe. So again, I want to get to that because Qi Gong is, if I have to say, if there's one thing that liberated me from a lot of my thinking, it was Qi Gong. I talked to you about ritual and how important ritual is to the unconscious mind to get rid of patterns. Extremely important. I talk about how to use your subconscious mind in order to intend your reality. Extremely important. But before you can do those things, you need power. And that's what Qigong gives you. It gives you power. So again, I don't know, I kind of got off the topic here, but while I take a break here, I'm going to list the symptoms of what is entailed when we are trapped in the reptilian mind matrix. And you can either apply this to yourself or you can look out into the world and see how much of this applies to people. And then we'll talk about how we can use this power of life force to break that. And more importantly, I'm going to tell you a key. This is a key that my teachers didn't ever understand. My teachers achieved huge amounts of power, far more than me, and in ways that if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. But they were still trapped in here. And they didn't learn the key to get free here. But once you get the two together, once you get this life force energy power and you can call it to you and you can flow with it, surrender to it, and control it, and then when you connect it to this other key, there is no limit to what you can achieve. So let's take a look here at the symptoms. What happens to people who are stuck in the reptilian mind matrix? So it is still possible, even though you can, and I've seen this firsthand, it is still possible for people to learn life force energy techniques, high level Qigong practices, and still be trapped. Because they still have fear and mistrust. And in fact, there is a thing called, you've heard Kundalini psychosis, there's also Qi sickness, same kind of thing, where you can actually go crazy. Because there's this dichotomy between real mastery of energy is about learning how to surrender to the infinite universe, to surrender to this life force energy, and at the same time be able to master it. It's this state of emptiness in between. That's where you're trying to get. And some people have more mental discipline than others, and it takes a lot of mental discipline to do this kind of stuff. And my teachers were like that. They had a lot of mental discipline, which gave them the ability to go beyond where a lot of people would go. They could stand in those postures for long periods of time, and they had the ability to flow and intuitively know how to move the energy through their body and achieve all kinds of things. But they didn't have the ability to let go of the fear, the mistrust. They didn't have the ability to work through their emotions like anger and sadness. And I'm gonna give you the key to unlocking that. I'm not ready to do that yet, but I'll give it to you today. There's a key to unlock that. Be able to unlock the lock that prevents us from opening that life force energy power up to infinity. So I will get to that. But Yeah, let's take a look and see if there are any questions here. Somebody wants to ask me if I believe in Jesus. And the way to answer that question is, once again, read this book. That book will tell you, will answer that question for you. All right, so somebody wants to know if Jesus was a Buddhist. Got to talk to Jesus about that. Naomi Salan says, is life force energy Kundalini? No, it is not Kundalini. Very simple. I'll give a very simple answer to that question. Kundalini is a Sanskrit word, and yogis use it. If Kundalini were life force energy, they wouldn't have to use another word that they call prana. So the Chinese call life force energy Qi. The yogis call it prana. We call it breath. Our ancestors, my ancestors, called it ond, I believe. But no, Kundalini is something else. I talk about that. Go onto my channel and just go into the search, search on my channel for Kundalini, and I talk very specifically about what Kundalini is and what the chakras are and what the difference is between Kundalini and Qi, or Kundalini and life force energy. There is a difference. How do you know it is awakened? Kundalini, again, we're talking about Kundalini. First off, don't get all wrapped up in that. That is a waste of time to get wrapped up in awakening your Kundalini. Meditating on certain chakras and doing this, and you might feel something in your body and opening your third eye. You can have experiences. That doesn't mean anything in terms of Kundalini. The way that Kundalini is awakened is through emotional maturity. So just sometimes the act of wanting to stimulate and open Kundalini, that in itself will throw you back into the reptilian brain stem of fear, limitation, victim mentality. People have assumptions. If I can awaken my Kundalini, I'll be free. I won't be trapped in the matrix, or whatever it is. All of those feelings that come from fear will keep you trapped. It won't matter how much energy that you get. So the short answer is, don't worry about Kundalini. First, most important thing to do is to live fearlessly, to trust the universe, to live in trust with the universe, and to live without fear. So the first thing you want to, if you want to awaken your Kundalini, here's the quickest thing to do: get a pen and a piece of paper and write down all the things you're afraid of. And then meditate on releasing those fears and trusting the universe. You're afraid of money, you're afraid of not having enough money. If that's your issue, that is something that's keeping you trapped, which is keeping your Kundalini from awakening. So start meditating on how you can trust the universe to provide for you. What is going to happen once you do that is the universe is going to start pushing you into doing what you truly want to do. And then you're going to have to bump into all of your fears about, why am I not doing what I truly want to do in life? So again, I don't know you very well personally. Who was it? Naomi? I don't know you personally. So I'm not talking about you. But in general, don't worry about that. If you want to awaken Kundalini, live with maturity and live with trust and take risks and follow your dreams, and Kundalini will awaken all by itself. All right, Emerson's Coffee, Bike, and Rum Shop. All right, okay, sorry. That's, you guys are talking to each other. There's a question here again from Emerson. I am attracted to Kung Fu. What about learning Kung Fu or similar to enhance our practice? Go train with somebody who knows Tai Chi, real Tai Chi. The Tai Chi that is taught now is for health. Which again, this is where it comes from. The guy who mastered that, who started that whole craze, I don't remember when it was a long time ago, but relatively recent in Tai Chi's history. He became a Tai Chi master because he was sick. He had a lot of physical illness. And so he's trained with a Tai Chi master, and Tai Chi back then, and very few, there's a handful of people who still know this, Tai Chi is a deadly, lethal martial art that, among other things, is also life force energy. So it uses life force energy, but in order to master that, you have to open up your meridians, and so you end up doing all these things that give you physical health. And again, in China, these people would go and learn from kung fu masters in order to overcome, life-threatening illnesses, major illnesses. Because when you open up the meridians, then energy flows. And here's the thing, I come back to trust. In order for the meridians to open, you have to be in a state of trust with the universe. Otherwise, life force energy won't flow. So again, even if somebody wants to be a master killer, they want to be an assassin, and learn these powerful techniques, first thing they got to do is learn how to trust the universe. Okay? So again, same thing as before. You want to master energy, learn to trust first. But to answer your question, find somebody who teaches Kung Fu. Bagua is another one, B-A-G-U-A. Those are great practices that will connect you to that. There's a difference between internal and external martial arts. External martial arts is like Kung Fu and boxing, which are very, very effective. But, like boxers, if you want to be a champion boxer, once you get past age 40, you're pretty much over. Whereas where you're doing internal martial arts, you're just starting to open up. That's why you see these legends of these old men walking down the street that nobody can touch them. It's because they've opened up their energy meridians, and they know how to use energy in ways that young people can't, because they're all into their body, and they trust their body. Anyway, that's a whole other subject. Dive into Spirit 33. Okay, again, looking for Dive into Spirit gives thumbs up to Celestial Qigong, so great. Holly Galogly says, Holly Galogly says, if Kundalini is a bottom-up activation, is there a name for top-down? Yeah, there is a name for top-down. Again, Kundalini and life force energy are two different things. They are related, but they're two different things. Opening up the Kundalini is awakening your emotional and psychological aspect of yourself. And that's why I say, if you want to open up the Kundalini and the chakras, just become mature. Become a mature individual. All the stuff about learning, how to treat people with respect, learning how to give to others, learning how to differentiate between your boundaries and other people's boundaries, and being healthy, all of that opens up Kundalini. And so that's why it's a bottom up. And I talk about that in the go watch the video about Kundalini and the chakras. But yes, there are ways to use, and I actually teach a form of bottom-down energy work with the central channel. That is, you can go on and learn it now if you learn the Heaven-Earth meditation. Again, I've opened up all kinds of stuff on my channel. I haven't even looked, but I'm pretty sure that almost nobody's watching these videos. If you go and watch the video on the Huul breath, H-U-U-L breath, if you go watch the video on the Heaven-Earth Qigong, these are things that, I would have had to spend years and years of training and probably thousands and thousands of dollars in gifts to the Sifu in order to learn this stuff, and I'm teaching it for free. So go on to my channel and make use of that. But if you really want to get the best out of it, go to qigong.thunderwizard.com and get this DVD. Alrighty, so I want to think about going further, so I want to do a little bit of business here, which is ads. Again, looking at the ads, don't forget to put the dot. I'm frustrated with myself. I forgot to put that there. Qigong.thunderwizard.com. I will be back in a minute or so. Okay, so now I want to start talking about the light body. You hear this word thrown around all over the place, but the idea behind the light body is that you activate the dormant, I mean, I don't even know if it's the DNA. I honestly don't know what it is, you know, if there's something actual in the actual physical cells or not, I don't know. But what we're doing is, within the human body, we do have these dormant possibilities that lie dormant until they are activated. And so what a lot of mistakes of a lot of teachers and a lot of practices do, including my teachers, is that they get caught up in the physical activation and the practices, which are necessary. What ends up happening is then you get this whole generation of people who go onto YouTube or onto, you know, the internet, and they're looking for, give me that one meditation to activate my light body. Like, if they can just do the thing to activate it, then they'll be okay. I know, because I was there. I did that for years. That's why I trained sometimes for 4 hours a day, and had the ability to do all kinds of crazy, crazy stuff with my energy. Because I thought if I could just achieve a certain level, then my light body would be activated, and then it would all be okay. And then I would be free of all this, you know, that was before we even knew about the matrix, you know, whatever we called it, the illusion or whatever. I trained so hard. I was celibate for 6.5 years, and I just didn't do anything. I did whatever I had to do to survive, and then I just spent the rest of my time training. You know, you see me now, I'm 205 pounds, you know, muscular and all that, because my body likes it. I was 145 pounds, not a stitch of fat on me, and I barely ate, but I just practiced my kung fu and my internal martial arts all day, and I activated all those dormant things within me. But there was one key that I had missing. And so even if you don't achieve the level of energy that I had, or like I didn't achieve the levels that my teachers had, I found this one key. The key that you use with the energy practices that then opens up infinity. It's sort of like, well, anyway, I'm kind of running out of analogies here, but let's take a look at the benefits of the light body. We looked at, again, we'll look at the symptoms of what happens when you're stuck in the reptilian brainstem, and then we'll look at the benefits that you get from the light body. Actually, I'll go through all these things. I don't even remember what I put, but there was a reason for it. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, so there is something else I wanted to go into before I get into the light body, which is I've given you the symptoms fear, isolation, mistrust, anger, violence. I could put in there resentment, victim mentality. These are the symptoms of being trapped, because again, what happens when a reptile is born? Reptiles are born in isolation. That's what makes them different from mammals. They're born in isolation, and as soon as they're born, the first thing that happens is they are on their own from the very beginning, and their life, their life expectancy is, there's out of the thousands or the hundreds or the, the scores of, little snakes or little even turtles or whatever it is, as soon as they're born, there are things waiting to eat them. And, they'll even like eat the other ones in their litter. The runts will get eaten by the bigger ones. So from the moment you come out of your shell, if you're a reptile, that's it. You have to operate from fear. It's him or me. And so you're running away from somebody that's trying to kill you. You're killing somebody that's trying to kill you. You're chasing down something to eat from the moment that you come out of the egg. Right? So fear works really well. If that's your, how you live. That's the reptilian mindset. That's why fear keeps us trapped there. And that's why it's addicting. Because if you weren't addicted to fear and anger as a reptile, you didn't survive. It's just that simple. And so again, I make the point that people who live in fear, even if they're fully functional adults walking around driving cars and eating and having a job and procreating and have a checking account and credit cards and all that, in terms of their evolution, I'm not talking about their mental evolution, but in terms of their energetic evolution, they are infants, because that's what a human infant, the first place that they operate from is from the reptilian mindset. So people who walk around with a victim mentality, I mean, you can see this, if you're on the other end of it. But if you're in the middle of it, you don't see that. When somebody complains and is a victim and talks about how something outside of them is doing it to them, whether it's their girlfriend or their boyfriend or their mother or their father or the government or God or whatever it is, that is a sign that you're in the reptilian brainstem. Mistrust, all of that. And then we talk about what are the experiences. Now we get into why we've got so many people walking around talking about reptilians controlling the earth and all that, because they are actually having these experiences which are a direct result of the indulging and living in the reptilian brainstem. Let's look at those experiences again. Okay, so maybe you don't experience ghosts or reptilians or aliens, but a lot of people ask me all the time about soulless people. Are there bots? Are there such things as soulless people? Well, if you're dealing with a reptilian, guess what? It feels like you're dealing with a soulless person. People who are serial killers, psychopaths. When you look them in the eye, there's nothing there, which is the same feeling you have when you look a shark in the eye or a reptile in the eye. There's nothing there. And that's that icy feeling that you get is because you can't connect with them on an emotional level. Interestingly enough, I did some research because I made a film, blah, 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 had to do with serial killers long ago when I was actor, filmmaker. And in my research, what I found is that you have a lot of institutionalized people and a lot of orphans. When children are born and they are not reared by parents and they live in isolation emotionally, the part of their brain, the emotional part of the brain, the midbrain, never gets fully activated, and even the other parts of their cognitive brain never get fully activated. They're really they're not complete humans. And one of the things they lack is empathy. and sympathy. They don't have it. That is the definition of a reptilian. So maybe you don't see ghosts and aliens and reptilians, but you find yourself being victimized, like really victimized by people, getting involved with people who are predators, people who are abusers. So if this is something that you continuously manifest through, you're not a kid anymore. As the theory goes, if you grew up in a household like that, by the time you become an adult and you no longer have to live under their actual physical control, then you should have the ability to manifest a situation where you don't have to experience that again. But then what happens? You end up manifesting and attracting, more predators and more abusers. And, I see this a lot, but, I don't, I'm not the only one. You've got the extreme example of people who experience emotional and physical abuse. And once you get the abuser out of their environment, they'll go back to that same abuser. They can't let go. They're stuck here. So that's one of the experiences that you have. So, fear of ghosts and reptilians and people, fear of the government, all of that is the experience that you have. So there's no coincidence that you have people who really actually experience reptilians controlling them, because they actually are. When you look one of those abusers in the eye and you get that cold, steely look looking back at you, that is their reptilian brain. They are a reptile in that moment, looking at you. So in order to get out of that, because this is part of the trap here in this illusion, this Maya, this matrix, is that we have set this life up so that there is a lot of energy trying to keep you in that. And, according to my teachers, and according to a lot of the books that I wrote, that talked about how to achieve the light body and achieve that higher state of being, is that these practices have within them little secrets. And this is one thing that I found, is that when masters of different traditions who had achieved all kinds of crazy things, they would write in books, the meditations and the practices in order to achieve what they were doing. And what they would do is they would do things like leave one detail out, or they would purposefully write it wrong, or write it in code, and then they would tell only their students, those that they had chosen to give the secret to, how to interpret that code. Here's what that really means. And they did that because they, especially a while back, there was a real fear that if somebody got a hold of that book, then they had your secret. Especially if you had a certain kind of martial art. There's some martial arts that have all kinds of crazy, like, energy practices, like video games, all that stuff. It comes from real stuff. And so if you had the little book that taught you how to do that, to create the fireballs or whatever it was, or to be in two places at once, all that kind of stuff, then they had your number and they could come and conquer your village. So that's why there's so many kinds of martial arts, because every village had its own secret practice. And as long as the other villages didn't know what your secret was, they wouldn't be able to defeat you. So all of these things are hiding this secret to the light body of achieving that state. And I believe that the universe set that up because one of the things that we are required to do in this life, if you want to achieve enlightenment or whatever it is, one of the things is that you've got to treat this like a game. And you've got to have the fun attached to wanting to solve the mystery of this game. So I'll give you one of the secrets to that right now, which is, and I've learned this multiple times, which is if you can adopt the understanding that the universe is sitting there and it has this secret and it wants you to find that secret. And the one thing that you can do in order to tap into that is to simply believe that the universe wants to give it to you. And that if you say to the universe, I know that you have the secret, and I know that you want me to find it, and I am going to keep practicing until you reveal it to me, because I know you will. Then you can bypass all of the teachers. You won't ever have to have a teacher. And if you do have a teacher, it'll be because there's some kind of karmic contract that you have with them. But you might be the person to discover it all on your own. But you have to have the discipline, you have to have the desire, and you have to have the willingness to believe that the universe will give it to you. But if you operate from the assumption that they're hiding it from me, the universe is hiding it from me, the teachers, the books, everybody's hiding it from me, then you'll never learn. Then you'll be very easily seduced. I'll give you an example. I've seen this happen a bunch of times, again with internal martial arts. The way that the Chinese teachers are is that they, and the same thing is true with East Indians, is that when they take you as a student, they're going to give you the basics first, and then they're going to watch you with the basics. What they're looking for is they're looking for your character. They're looking to see that that you can be trusted with the keys, the really deep stuff. And if they see that you can be trusted with that, which part of that is over time, you have to train with them sometimes for years before they can get a sense of your character and know, you know what, I can trust this person with this key, because they will use it for the right reasons. And then they will say, okay, I'm going to show you the secret stuff. And then you have to promise not to show anybody about it or to talk about it or even admit that you learned it. And then they'll give you little bits and pieces to go further and further. Kind of forgot where I was going with that, but I'm giving you an important mindset behind this, because here's the thing. I could give to somebody, and I've done this before. This is one of the reasons why I don't teach a lot of stuff outright. This is one of the reasons why if somebody wants to train with me in spirit fighting, they're going to have to really compensate me for my time and my energy. Because if they're not willing to put the time and the effort or pay for it, then I already know that they don't have the discipline, and they're not committed. It's not about me. They're not committed to themselves enough to go after it. Because if I were to tell you, and if you were to believe me, if I were to tell you, listen, I have the one secret to everything that will give you, think of whatever it is that you want to achieve. And if I were to come to you, let's say if what you wanted was to achieve levitation, that if you thought if you could levitate, that would open up the universe to you and you'd have everything you wanted. And if you believed me, and if I were to come to you and say, I have the one secret to levitation, but it's going to cost you $20,000. You can come up with $20,000, I'll give you the secret. If you believed me, and if it really was the most important thing in your life, you would find a way to get that $20,000. And that's what they're looking for. So it's not about how much money or any of that kind of stuff. It's, does this person really honestly want this, number one? Like, they're not just looking to get something because they don't want to be, because they're afraid of being limited. But they actually want this. They have a hunger within them that nothing else will satisfy them but that knowledge. And then they have a belief that the universe will give them the necessary tools and resources to get it. Then that person will be able to achieve mastery in it. And then they teach them. And lots of times they'll teach them for nothing. But the student has to earn it in one way or another. And this is in all kinds of mythology. The demons, the asuras, in the Vedic mythologies, they had to do things like stand on one foot for 10,000 years. And then they get Shiva's blessing, and then Shiva blesses him with the power to rule the world. That's symbolic of the same thing. But a lot of people don't have the discipline and don't have the desire, and here's why. It's not because they're bad or lazy. Because they really don't want it. They think they want it because they think if I can achieve this, it will free me from this misery of being a human being. And I can tell you it won't. I've seen my teachers. You know, there was a guy, my teacher's teacher, I won't get into the specifics, but he had achieved a certain ability that I wanted. I wanted it so bad. And he was such a cruel bully. You know, he was, on the one hand, he could be so brilliant and so amazing, and you would just be wrapped in attention as you listen to him talk or you watch him move energy, or, you know, even if he were to transfer energy to you. It was just an amazing experience. But he was such a bully, and he was so frightened, and he was so insecure. I mean, nobody could touch him to this day. I don't even know how old he is. He's considerably older than I am. He's got to be in his 80s by now. 70s or 80s. And he's untouchable. Nobody in the world can touch this guy. He could walk into a room with people that have guns and knives and machine guns, and nobody be able to touch him. But he was miserable. I haven't seen him in years, so maybe he's different now. But last time I saw him, he was a very miserable, angry old man. So that's the illusion, is if you can just achieve it, you'll be okay. I'll be free of this misery. So I'm slowly building up to telling you what the one key is that these men didn't have. And I'm going to share it with you. So now we've talked about what the limitations are of the reptilian mindset. I've hopefully I've teased you into wanting to know what the light body really is, and I've teased you to want to know what that one thing is. That will, if you have the techniques, which are, I'm not going to say they're absolutely necessary, but I'd say 99% of the time they are necessary to have the actual techniques. But then if you have this one key that you use with the techniques, you can unlock those techniques to then bring you what my teachers, as far as I know, never achieved. So we're going to get to that in a second here, so let's do some ads. Remember, on the ads here, that's qigong.thunderwizard.com to get celestial qigong. Okay, so there are a couple of questions here that I think are good, which I want to respond to. There's something that Emerson's Coffee, Bike, and Rum Shop says, which I think is very relevant. And she says, Sifu, I've been watching your old videos compared to today, and you look so different and younger. Absolutely correct. I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, but you're absolutely right about that. And let me explain to you how I got there. My oldest videos on my channel go back to, I don't know, 2009, I think. So that's not that long ago. I don't know. I guess it is long, and it's almost 10 years, so I guess it's kind of long. But if you look at those videos, you see I look a lot older. Part of that is because I've shaved my head and my face. If I were to grow my beard out, my beard is completely white, and I've got a bald spot up here. So yeah, if I don't keep myself high and tight, I start to look like an old man, you know. But you are right. I am significantly healthier and younger. And let me explain to you how I got there. That is right after. Remember, you just heard me talk about how my teachers and what they had achieved, and how I believed that they had missed it, and they were miserable and angry and upset and sick too, by the way, in a lot of pain. Which taught me a lot of things. Anyway, what had happened is that I was training with my teacher, and I had been given permission by him to go and start my own school, my own class, which is what I did. And I started training people in spirit fighting, and I started creating my own forms of Qigong, and I started making things, cutting them down and making them easier and more accessible for people. And I had people like, I had this old guy with arthritis, and it was healing him, and and then I was teaching people the high level stuff, and I had this whole thing going. And I made this mistake because, being a good student, I want to be respectful to my teacher. I had learned years before that there was nothing more that I could learn from my direct teacher. And I'd come to find out that he was, not that healthy of a person to be around, and so there was a reason why I was on my own. But I wanted to be a good, faithful student, and again, the universe has a plan for all this. And I was living down here in Southern California, and I went to him and I said, Sifu, I want you to see my class. I want them to meet you. And so I invited him to come to my class and to watch what I was doing. And he helped people, and that's kind of one of the things that happens is, people break up into little groups and then work on different postures and stuff like that. And then he came to me and he started, long story short is that he wanted in on my class. And so the traditional thing is you can't say no to your teacher. So I ended up giving him half of that class. And then he ended up taking half of the money that I was earning, and then I started losing students right and left because I wasn't honoring me. I was my own teacher. I was doing my own thing. The universe was already doing its own thing through me, and I wasn't honoring that. And so as a result, I was losing my students. Then, coincidentally enough, his teacher came into town, and he hadn't seen his teacher for years, for the same kinds of reasons. And so he came and saw my class, and then he shut my class down. And he said, nope, I don't want you teaching that anymore. And Richard is the teacher now, and he's the Sifu of this class. And so Richard was the name of my teacher. Next thing I know, my teacher is now running my class. I can't teach all of the new things that I was teaching, and I had to send away the one guy that needed the class. He had he was an old guy and he had really bad arthritis and he was healing. And I said, I can't teach you anymore. And I tried living in that scenario, and it was so oppressive to my spirit that I ended up leaving. And that's what got me out of California the first time. Because I was sitting there, long story short, I said, I got to get out of here. And so I packed up and I put everything in the back of my truck. I said goodbye to my teacher. I said goodbye to my old students, and I left. And I went off, and I was going to live out of the back of my truck into the mountains of Idaho, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And then I ended up meeting my then future wife, who's now my ex-wife, and blah, blah, blah. But I was really depressed. So in those older videos, even in the Celestial Qigong videos, even though, that is the practice, Even in those videos, I was very depressed, and I had physical pain that was a result of me not, living the life that I wanted to live. And I was looking and feeling and acting like your typical middle-aged guy. I was in my 40s at that time, and I had major problems. I had knee problems. I had back problems and neck problems, and I had tendonitis, and I had, all these things, and doctors were telling me I wasn't going to be able to, this, that, and the other thing. Anyway, I talk about that in, by the way, how to heal yourself from that kind of stuff. Besides Qigong, I recommend this book here. Where did it go? The Secret Shamanic Commandment to a Perfect Life. If you put those two things together, that book with Celestial Qigong, if you just have those two things, you're set. You're good. Those two things, if you master them, will not only allow you to have everything you want in life, but it will also give you the ability to master all these other things that I teach. I teach, this stuff. There's the 30 Saz rune mantra, the Heaven Earth Qigong, the Hole Tir meditation. All of those things are in and of themselves entire practices that you could spend a lifetime mastering. But if you don't have the internal key, it's going to take a lot longer, and you won't get as much out of it. So we're getting to that internal key. So that's why I look so much younger now. One of the reasons I look so much younger is because I am. I mean, I'm free. I have no physical pain. I do things that, even when I couldn't do in my 40s, I'm doing things now that I was doing when I was in my 20s. The last time I went to the doctor and had my numbers checked, they came back like, how can you have these numbers at your age? It's not possible. Are you sure these, things that were just off the charts in terms of youth? So, that's a whole other subject. We'll have to talk about healing and all that kind of stuff another time. But yeah, I wanted to acknowledge that, not because I'm anything special, but because if you listen to what I'm telling you, there's no reason not to be completely happy and healthy and strong and all that stuff until, I'm not the only one. There are people in their 70s and 80s. There are guys that are still bodybuilders at age 70, They're like champion bodybuilders. I mean, there's no reason not to be completely happy and healthy for as long as you're on this planet. Okay, so let's see. Dive into Spirit 33 asked, do I have any thoughts on breatharians and their ability not to eat and live off of life force energy? I've heard of it. I have no reason to disbelieve it. I don't. Yeah, I haven't done it, so I can't comment on it more than that. I think it's possible. I don't see any reason why not. You'd have to ask them if there's an energy practice for that, because I don't know about that. Okay, let's see. Is there a question here? Mr. Javabali says, some say that almost all of us have a reptilian 4D parasite, and the best that we can do is just make peace with him. What do you think? I think that is a surefire reptilian thing to teach somebody if I wanted to keep them trapped. Listen, guys, there's so much money to be made off of your fear. And I could. If I wanted to be, the richest cult leader on this planet, I could do it. Not that I could. Internally, I couldn't pull it off. I wouldn't be able to live with myself. But I know exactly how to do it, and that would be one way to do it. And not only that, I could say you've got a 4D parasite, and then I could create methods by which you could experience that parasite, and then I would tell you I'm the only person on the planet that has the answer, and I could come up with a meditation that would give you the ability to be free of that and make you dependent upon me. I could totally do that. I've had people, I had a student who was constantly coming at me telling me, you could be so rich. You know so much about breath work and energy. You could fill the room with people and you could manipulate their breath in such a way where they would get so high and they wouldn't be able to do it. You could, why don't you, he was constantly asking me, when are you going to do it? When are you going to create your cult? I really want to be happy. I really want to be free. And it's impossible. You know, that's how you get stuck in here. Is if you honestly believe that you need people, if you need people's money, if you need to control people, if you need anything outside of yourself, that's how you stay trapped in there. And that's part of the maze of the game, is that you can achieve these levels of energy and enlightenment, but you know, you can also stay trapped there. I have no interest in that. So I think it's a bunch of nonsense. Drop every single belief system that has any fear attached in it. Anything that says that there's something, fear always comes from the belief that you need something outside of you. Again, think of those little reptilians, those little crocodiles, those snakes, those lizards. They come out of the shell, they cannot survive on their own, so they have to eat something. They have to grab something and eat it and live off of that. And then they're immediately in fear their whole lives. And there's humans that, I mean, how many humans live their entire lives that way on some level or other? Drop it. Drop it. You don't need to believe in any of that. You've got to, trust is, again, to master energy, you have to trust. You have to surrender to the universe. All right. Okay, all right, so let's continue. All right, so let's go on. So let's start talking about the light body. So let's take a look here. What did I say about the light body here? I made up a little dealy bop. Okay, this is kind of important because there's something that I put in there that is not true, that that my teachers didn't have. Actually, they did have it, now that I think about it, but their limitations surrounding their reptilian brain issues kept them from seeing. So you can have personal power, you can have confidence, you can have health, you can have freedom, you can have joy. But the one thing that that I think that they didn't quite have was the power of intention. Because when you truly achieve this, then you have this power of intention, which isn't, I'm going to intend a 6-story mansion. It doesn't work like that. The one rule about the power of intention, which is which I talk about in this book here, The Secret Shamanic Commandment to a Perfect Life. The one rule about being able to master intention is that you have to be in alignment with your deepest soul desire. And I can guarantee you that the majority of people on this planet, their soul desire is not to have a 6-room mansion or have 20 Mercedes, even though that's what they think. And that's why they can't manifest it. They can't intend it because it's not coming from their deepest soul desire. But from your deepest soul desire, you can intend. You can intend absolute infinity in regards to your soul desire. And then you get to work through your limitations. Like my limitations, I'll just tell you straight out, my limitations are around this practice, this teaching. I can feel it. I know that my deepest soul desire and my orlog, my dharma, my path is to, you know, I mean, you go ahead in your imagination and think of who the most powerful person, avatar that could come, and that's where I'm supposed to go. I'm supposed to be one of those people. And the only thing stopping me is my own limitation of myself. So I'm just being straight with you about that. That's my limitation. I have to bump into that. I have to bump into the fear. It's very frightening to me. The fear of if I were to really embrace what I'm capable of in terms of this teaching and freeing the world, it scares the crap out of me. I'm working at it. I'm getting there. I'm still human. I'm still doing, every time I do one of these, I didn't want to do this today. I really had to put some work into it to get myself to get on this video and talk today, and to push the bounds. You know, it's a scary thing. We're the only ones that prevent us, but I can see it. I can feel it, and I've experienced so many things that I know that our abilities are far beyond what even our imaginations can allow us to believe. So I'm getting to the one thing here. I've talked all around the subject here, because if I just threw it out in the beginning, and maybe I didn't even pull it off this time, maybe I did, I don't know. I really wanted to set it up so that I could just drop this in, and if you drop it in, it's that last little ingredient that makes everything come alive. I've talked to you about, in multiple videos, I've talked to you about the reptilian brain, the matrix, being trapped in the reptilian matrix. I've talked all about that. I have talked about the soul desire in multiple videos. If you're new to this channel, go back and watch all that stuff. I'll keep talking about it. I've barely scratched the surface when it comes to Qigong. Barely scratched the surface on that. I've talked to you about how to open up your unconscious mind with ritual, how to open up your subconscious mind in order to intend. But I haven't told you the one thing that I have found out just recently, which is the one thing that keeps people in the reptilian brainstem no matter how much energy they have. And that is one word: isolation. Now, you can be surrounded by people and be isolated. You can be completely alone and be totally in relationship with the entire universe. And this is the one thing that's missing, is this freedom from isolation. Again, let's go back to those reptilians. They are the way that they are, and our reptilian brain, which is the same brain that's evolved for millions of years, this is the blueprint that dictates our survival. This is the one thing that is guaranteed to be fully and completely activated from birth until death, and that is that same reptilian brain. That is the same in all creatures. It's the same. The one thing that they have is that from birth they are isolated. And so they are programmed to believe that they are isolated. And so if you are a human being like I am, and you have had challenges and difficulties getting past that feeling of wanting to be not reincarnate, the need to be enlightened. You know, there's so many people that need that. I don't ever want to come back to this life. Just free me from this miserable existence. The only thing that they're needing is to be freed from the reptilian brain. Nothing else. They don't need to be freed from this earth. They don't need to be freed from this political environment. They don't need to be freed from whatever. Pick it. Ghosts. I don't care. Demons. Sin. You don't need to be freed from any of those things. Only thing you need to be freed from is your reptilian brain. And all of those things that try to tell you, here's the one thing that you need, except for this video, here's the one thing that you need that will free you, all those things do is keep you trapped in there. They keep you dependent on something or somebody outside of you. To answer your you didn't ask a question, but Renee Petronovich, pointed out how much younger I look now. What happened is that I've shared about it, but very briefly I'll share about it again. I was miserable and I was trapped. I won't get into it, but I was just so trapped in my life. And I could see no way out. I mean, it was like I would try to look into the future and I just could not see. I could not see a future for myself. By the way, that's the best definition of depression I've ever heard, is not being able to imagine a future for oneself. I was there. And then I got mad. Now, you may have a different experience, but I got mad. I got mad and I said, I refuse to be trapped anymore. I refuse to be sick. I refuse to be unhappy. And I thought I was getting old. I don't feel like that now, but then I thought I was starting to get old. I refuse to get old. I refuse it. And to this day, I refuse to be sick. I refuse to be miserable. I refuse to be trapped. I refuse to do it. I won't do it. I had no idea how I was going to be healed. I had no idea how I was going to be free, how I was going to have the life that I have now. I had no idea how I was going to pull it off. I had no money. I had, blah, blah, blah. It couldn't happen. The one thing that gave it to me was I made that commitment to myself, and without realizing it, in order to make that commitment, a part of me had to accept that the universe was going to provide what I needed, and or that I had it within me. And that there was no other evidence that told me that I had that. There was no other evidence. I'm sitting here thinking that I can give you the evidence, that I can tell you, just do what I did. And I'm trying to be that evidence for you. But I know that if you don't have that belief, there's nothing I can say. Nothing anybody can say or do that will get you out of that. You have to do that. You have to make that decision. You have to become God. That's when you become God. When you make that decision that nothing is going to stop you. And then you continue to take action regardless of how you feel. Based on the belief. Then the whole universe comes crumbling down and creates for you everything that you want, and you can intend your reality. So it is the refusal to be isolated anymore. When you are no longer isolated in your beliefs, meaning that you have a direct communication with the universe, then you can, that's the one thing that's missing. Then you can take celestial Qigong and then a door opens for you. And I can't guarantee anybody else's experience, but well, in fact I can't even brag about it right now. They won't let me. But I have come to believe that there are techniques and tools within that practice that can give you unlimited everything, unlimited human evolution. But let's get back to what's important. Again, let's take a look at what are the benefits here of the light body. That feeling of connectedness, that's really what everybody wants. That is what people are doing, no matter what their issue is, whether they're trying to rule the world, or whether they're a drug addict, or whether they are, I don't care. Whatever it is they think. My teachers, they wanted to be the most powerful men on the planet. I wanted to be the most powerful man on the planet too, energetically speaking. What you really want is to feel connected. So in order to get all these powers, to activate the light body, to open up the chakras, people asked about to open the chakras, to open up the pineal and the pituitary gland. The one thing that has to happen is that you have to exercise your desire to connect, to be connected to the universe, and to no longer live in isolation. It's just that simple. When you are born in isolation and you're programmed to be isolated, then you will be trapped. Remember I talked about the serial killers, and a lot of them were orphans. And that they never had that experience. I talked about this yesterday, where I talked about, I still have it here because I love it so much, I didn't delete it off my little thing here. This is, I want to worship this picture. I want to be that moon right there. That being connected to the infinite love of the universe, if I can be so touchy-feely. Everybody, the ultimate thing that everybody wants is to be connected and to be loved. And there is only one love in the universe, and that is the love of your own soul. And that is activated when you listen to what I'm going to say right now. It's very important. When you give the universe the gift of yourself, the universe loves you back. It's not just about being connected. It's not just about opening yourself up to the universe. And I'm saying this because I am consciously attacking a mindset and a belief that we have, which is, well, okay, if I'm worthy, okay, maybe the universe will give some of its energy to me. Maybe it'll love me, maybe. Have you ever been in a relationship with somebody like that? That here you are, you want to love them, make love to them, give them something, hug them, and you can't connect with them because they don't feel worthy of your love? It's horrible. It's more than just hurtful. It's insulting. Because you're like, I'm the one giving out my love here. Why are you making the decision that you're not? I make that decision if you're good enough for my love. Why are you making that decision for me? You're not only hurting me, you're insulting me. So this idea that we have to get the universe to love us, it's not even that it's freely available. You know, I talk about that a lot, and I make it sound like it's freely available. It's just this thing that's out there and it's freely available to you. But it is more than that. When you connect through celestial Qigong, for example, if you choose to use that as the conduit to connect to life force energy, you will immediately feel in your body. Those of you who've done it know what I'm talking about. You immediately feel this power flowing through you. And then you have to go through all of the emotional hurdles of, wow, what is this? And then, but there's a part of, am I worthy of this? Do I deserve to have this? Oh my gosh. But understand that there's this universe on the other side of that that is actually wanting to connect with you and wanting you to give of your love to the universe. It wants to feel your love. It wants to feel that connection. This is the goddess. This is the true nature of the goddess. And it's something that is not very well understood. I'm just now beginning, I feel like I'm just beginning to understand it. So now let's get over this whole idea of I need to achieve this, I want to get that, I want to do this, you know, and then getting over the do I deserve it? And, you know, I mean, now that you start thinking about it, doesn't the whole thought of having to live your life in fear of parasites and reptilians, I mean, doesn't it just sound silly? It sounds silly to me. You know, it's just silly. Imagine if you're a mother. Imagine if you're a mother, you love your children, and your children are filled with this fear that you or somebody else or something else in this home that you've built for them, you know, is trying to destroy you. I mean, think about that. It's just silly. And I'm not saying this to make people feel stupid. I'm just trying to, you know, we can't take ourselves too seriously. We just can't. You know, that's why in the beginning I put that whole thing together and I had the Futurama guy flipping out. I had to laugh a little bit. Anyway, so that's my thought about that. I'll see if there are any questions. Let's just enjoy being loved by the universe. You know, maybe this is one of the reasons I love this picture, is because the moon represents life force energy. And so one of the ways to worship the moon is to do Qigong. Because Qigong represents the mead, you know, that Indra feeds off of the mead, and then this is what happens to him. Sorry, the soma. Indra feeds off of the soma. Thunar feeds off of mead. And so even beneath the thunder gods, who are the protectors of the human race, they still need this nurturing power. That's why Indra drinks the soma, and that's why Thunar drinks the mead, because they still need that power to be able to do their job of protecting the universe. And beneath all of that is this. Okay, so I don't know if there's anybody still on. I'm going to take just a short break here, do some ads, and then I'll come back and answer any questions. Let's see, what am I looking for? I'm looking for this. Okay, let me take a look and see if there are any questions now. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Still 17 people on there. Okay, Travis Cup says isolation, as in what? Please explain. Let us take a look again at all of the symptoms that are telling us when somebody is living in the reptilian brainstem. all of those symptoms, fear, victim mentality, violence, all of them cannot exist unless you feel alone in the universe. Unless you feel alone in the universe, you won't have those experiences. But that is what happens. Again, the reptilian brain is where all of that feeling trapped comes from. And people are trapped. Human beings are trapped from birth because they are activated. Your reptilian brainstem is completely activated, as opposed to the rest of your brain and your other stuff. They're not activated. I mean, not necessarily. And when you operate from feeling alone in the universe, then what ends up happening? Everybody's against you. The reptilians are against you, your neighbors are against you, the government is against you, God is against you. I mean, Christianity is one of the biggest, religions of isolation that exists. I mean, from the moment, according to God, from the moment you were born in sin. God hates you from the moment you're born. And you're worthy of hell from the moment you're born. And then you can't help but sin, according to the Christians. You can't not sin, you have to sin. It's just your nature. You're separated from God. That's, the fundamentalists teach that. Man is separated from God. That's isolation, being alone. So, I mean, that again, think about that. What a horrible place. From the get-go, you're already an outcast from the infinite source of all life. The source that created you, according to Christianity, the Almighty Jehovah, the Heavenly Father, He creates these human beings, and from the moment they're squirted out of the womb, they are separated from God. They are sinful. This is isolation, feeling alone. You do not feel unworthy if you are not alone, if you are connected. If you feel loved, you don't feel any of those things. You only feel those things if you don't feel loved. Again, think about the serial killers. You look them in the eyes, there's nothing there. They have the eyes of reptiles. Their brains have not been developed because a lot of them grew up as orphans. They had no mother to reflect back their mind to them. Talk about that yesterday. They're reptiles. They only get, any pleasure they get is out of power and killing, which is what a reptile does. Slithers around waiting for its next meal. Fighting off people because you want to keep your territory. This only happens when you feel alone. If you don't know what that means, then go to any feelings of not being worthy, of feeling unloved. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants it. It's what the deepest thing that we want more than anything, more than any power, more than any enlightenment. You think you want to be enlightened. It's not really what you want. What you want is to be loved. And what I'm saying to you is that the universe is already set up with that. The reason why doing Qigong and energy work is so healing is because the moment that you start doing it, you get this reaction. So I hope I answered your question, but that's what isolation means. It means you feel alone in the universe. And you don't feel like the universe wants to take care of you. This is why I keep hammering away on first thing that you have to assume is that the universe loves you and wants you to be happy and successful. If you don't operate from that assumption, you are nothing but a reptile. And that's, again, why people are so into this whole reptilian thing. That's why people are so into aliens. on both sides. Either they think the aliens are going to come and save them, and I'm not even saying aliens do or do not exist. I'm not saying one way or another. I'm just saying that's why people are so into them. Or that's why there's all these conspiracy theories. This is why you could give people the truth, and people would rather live in a world full of conspiracies. Because that's where they're living. That's the only thing they know. To get out of that is going to be scary. I talked about this yesterday. Somebody asked me about love, and asked me about the specific question was, why do men run away from true love when a partner is willing to be that blank mirror to reflect back to you your true soul, which is what really it is to be loved. That's what true love is. Without any agenda. Reflect back your divinity to you without any agenda. That's what the goddess does. I forgot what I was saying, but that's, that to experience that is extremely frightening. You have to die to yourself. This whole thing about the eclipse. Remember, I've been talking about what this is going to be and how it's going to tear your life apart and you're going to be pulled out of this, and people are flipping out and saying I'm being too negative. It's because that is what's necessary in order to be able to truly accept the unconditional, agendaless reflection of the goddess, the universe. And when you have that ability, which is, again, the mead, which is the soma, which is the moon, when you get that, you become the illusion is that you have to achieve it, right? You have to achieve enlightenment. And so we go through all of this stuff where we train for 70 years and we do the thing so that we can be worthy enough to achieve what's already yours. It's already there. It's just waiting. But you have to be willing to drop your ego. And your ego doesn't mean you yourself. I'm not saying you're egotistical. I'm saying dropping the limitation. Your ego is nothing more than your limitation. This is what I am. I'm only this. That's your limitation. But when we drop that, it feels like we're dying. And you are dying. This is why Odin sacrificed himself to himself. And what did Odin achieve when he sacrificed himself to himself? He achieved the runes, which are the mysteries of the universe. This is why Odin is the only one of the gods that can travel at will to any one of the 9 worlds. His name, Woden, he who is consumed with the fire, with the fury of self-awareness. Woden. Wod means, shamanic ecstasy, the ecstasy of self-awareness. He has no ego. This is what people don't know about Odin. He has no ego. He has no limitation. He consists of only Wod. Whoa. He's just in constant awe of the infinity of the universe. He is Woden. Whoa. I mean, that's where that word comes from. Whoa. That's what he is. In fact, if you just chant that, whoa. All you have to do is chant that. It'll make you laugh. But that, I can feel it when I do that. You have to drop the ego. And dropping the ego is not torturing yourself, beating yourself up. It's not the Catholic, middle-aged, flagellating yourself because mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. It's not that at all. It's dropping the limitations of who you think you are. And I'm telling you, that is the biggest fear. I told you guys yesterday that there was a comment that disturbed me because I was talking about the eclipse, and I was talking about how the eclipse was going to tear away, things from you. What are you willing to let go of? And somebody said, I don't want to change. How can I stop the change? And I said, you can't. Why would you want to do that? And then that was very upsetting to that person. I like my life. I don't want it to change. Quote. Well, you have to let it change. If you're going to get big enough, you're going to have to die to all of the things. Die to everything. There's one thing that in the Christian tradition, there's one verse that I think is actually there's a few of them that are actually pretty profound. And I'm trying to think of it offhand. It's been so long. The guy's following Jesus, and he says, I want to follow you. And Jesus says, okay, give away all of your possessions and follow me. And the guy says, wait, I just have to go back and bury my parents. And he says, you're not, unless you're willing to, I forget, die to, your parents or let go of your family, you're not worthy of me. I'm totally butchering the verse, but that's the thing. He said, no, if you want to go bury your parents, go bury your parents. You want to follow me, follow me. Which means that, even those of us who are attached to our family, our loved ones, our children, and I'm not saying that you have to lose them. What I'm saying is that even there, the attachments there that confine us, that limits our ability to be one with the universe. So that's why there's that whole myth about you have to let go of everything. That's why cults make you get rid of all of your possessions, because there's a truth to that symbology. Of course, they totally manipulate it and use it to take your money away from you and control you. But there's a truth there. It has to happen in here. It has to happen internally, where you are willing to die to all of your attachments, to all of the things that you think you are, even the things you think you love, the things that you think you want, because in order to be infinite, you got to let go of that finite aspect. And that's what the universe gives. That's what the love of the universe will give. But in order to fully get that love, you've got to be able to let go. And again, you can do all of that and still have your house and your car and your family and your kids and your pets. You can still have all your toys. But when somebody truly loves you, whether that's in a personal relationship or whether that's with the universe, when you are truly loved, it will be the most frightening, painful experience of your life. And so that's what I mean by isolation, where we isolate ourselves from the universe because we intuit the universe to truly be loved by the universe. It'll kill us. It'll kill the small, tiny little ego. Well, so that was quite a little trip I went on. Anyway, I'll see if there's any questions here. Well, Travis asked, what is the real definition of sin from the Vedic point of view? Well, I don't know that I can speak for the Vedic point of view, but one of my teachers summed it up great. S-I-N, self-imposed negativity. That's it. Self-imposed negativity. Okay, so we've run out of questions here. I'm sort of running out of steam. I'm getting hungry. I'll do some ads. If you want the benefit of the most powerful energy practice on the planet that I myself have ever experienced, I can't say if there's others out there, my own personal experience, short of the actual deepest stuff that I've ever learned, is Celestial Qigong. To get it, you go to qigong.thunderwizard.com. Okay, so that's it for me today. Also, you can, if you want to become a shaman, so let me just very briefly talk to you the difference between achieving the light body and being a shaman, according to the way I'm using the words. A shaman is somebody who has the ability to not only connect with the forces of the universe, not only be a conduit through which the spirit realm can communicate with the realm of the physical, but a shaman is a practitioner who has the ability to actually affect this matrix, to affect physical matter, to intend their thoughts and create new aspects of energy. This is what ritual is. So for that, go to thunderwizard.com. Start at the beginning. When you sign up, then click on, you'll scroll to the bottom of the page and click on more. I think it says more or more videos. Click on that until you get all the way to the bottom, and then start from there. And I teach you exactly how to create a space, which I call a thunder wheel, how to connect with the 8 directions, how to summon and use the 5 elements, how to do ritual. Ritual is not worship. Ritual is a science through which you use all kinds of different things to use the power of the unconscious mind to empower your subconscious mind, which gives you the ability to intend. Some people call it magic, but I cut out a lot of the complicated mishmash of magic and just get it down to bare bones shamanism. Those, you can talk to anybody who's worked with me, who does this on a regular basis. They'll tell you about the power of the thunder wheel and what it does. So if you're just looking to connect and feel the power, you can do celestial Qigong. If you want to actually start learning how to be a shaman, go to thunderwizard.com. Anybody who wants a Vedic reading is probably the most important thing outside of all those, because that gives me an ability to tell you what sound vibrations you can use to vibrate yourself at your highest level. Again, all this is worthless if you don't have that understanding that you are connected. That's the main thing. But then with that, I can give you all kinds of stuff. I highly recommend getting a Vedic astrological reading as well. Okay, so that's it for me now. I do not see any questions, so I'm going to stop here for today. So that's it. Thank you, my friends. Let's see what happens next time. I will talk to you soon. Remember, if anything, just remember that this is your true relationship. The moon is your mind, is your emotions, and the universe is the mother. And this is really, there's only one truth, and it is this.